Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today is a very special day. I'm going to do a little tribute to one of my local heroes, Brian Piccolo. And as you can see, they made a movie of him, Brian's song. And here is a tribute to him. I am at Brian Piccolo Park here in near Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Just a few miles down from my house. I live off of Sheridan, and this is right off of Sheridan. So they were kind enough to allow me to come in here and videotape some of the things that they have. So I'm gonna go ahead and videotape a little bit about Brian Piccolo, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about him. As you can see, Brian Piccolo passed away 1970. He was 26 years old. He had the heart of a giant, Gail Sayers said. I may get emotional in this because I remember Brian. He was a local hero here. And it's a great story, very sad story, but it's an incredible guy. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about him. Here's a huge poster they have of him here. And this park is a 175-acre park. And it's all dedicated to the local hero, Brian Piccolo. This is the award, this is the George Hallis Courage Award that was awarded to Gail Sayers. And you got to read this because this really tells you who Gail Sayers was and who Brian Piccolo was. When Gail Sayers was awarded this, he knew that Brian Piccolo had cancer, and this was the speech that he gave, that Gail Sayers gave. I'd like to say a few words about the guy I know, a friend of mine. His name is Brian Piccolo. He has a heart of a giant, and the rare form of courage that allows him to kid himself and his opponent, cancer. He has the mental attitude which makes me proud to have a friend who spells out courage 24 hours a day, every day of his life. Now you flatter me by giving me this award, but I say to you here and now that Brian Piccolo is the man of courage who should receive the George S. Hallis Award. It might be mine tonight, but it's Brian Piccolo's tomorrow. I love Brian Piccolo. I'd like all of you to love him too. And tonight, when you hit your knees, please ask God to love him. That was Gail Sayers. I'm getting emotional, guys, because, hey, you know, it's an emotional story. And some of the things about Brian Piccolo is he was the first white football player to room with a black player in Chicago history. He roomed with Gail Sayers. They were friends and they were roommates. Let me show you some of his memorabilia here. I'll go ahead and close this room here a second. Here is some of his memorabilia here on display. And these are his shoulder pads from high school. And Brian Piccolo went to a Catholic high school, and today it's called St. Thomas Aquinas. And that's his helmet from St. Thomas Aquinas. And that is his jersey from St. Thomas Aquinas. And he was a top star at St. Thomas. And there's his card. And I was going to show you my card. And there's my card of Brian Piccolo. And this was my pickup from the show with the Hitman. So Brian Piccolo in high school was one of the top athletes. He actually was the top athlete here in this area in Florida. And if you don't know about St. Thomas Aquinas is the top 3 high schools in all of Florida. And they've won over 100 Florida championships. And St. Thomas has had incredible athletes, graduate from there like Michael Irvin, the Boza brothers, Joey and Nick Boza. Chris Everett also graduated from there. Some Olympic stars and some other very famous athletes graduated from St. Thomas Aquinas, along with Brian Piccolo. Here's Brian Piccolo's Wake Forest. So he went to Wake Forest. He was only 2 colleges offered him scholarships, and one of them was Wake Forest. So he went to Wake Forest. And this is him. If you can get I know it got a lot of glare, but this is his picture of the awards that he had won at Wake Forest. And there's Brian, young Brian Piccolo, and that is his jersey from Wake Forest. And you know, he was an incredible player, and he was actually the top running back in 1964 in Wake Forest. He scored more touchdowns and more points than any other running back in college that year. And unfortunately, the draft was, you know, back in those days, they were only drafted, I think, 2 or 3 rounds. So he wasn't really drafted. He came on as a walk-on with the Bears. There's his Bears uniform. There's his Bears helmet. So he went to the Bears, but he was on the practice squad. He wasn't drafted. There's a NFL football that he used in one of the games that he used to run. I'm not sure if there's no plaque saying what it is, but I know it's a game used football. I talked to the people here a little bit. They gave me permission to go ahead and videotape all of this. And this is his jersey, Brian Piccolo's jersey, Chicago Bears jersey. So Brian came on to the Bears on the taxi squad. And he was on the practice squad. Basically, he could play with them in practice, but he wasn't allowed to suit up for the team, for the games. So he practiced with the team. So I'm gonna go ahead and take you outside here, and let's take a look at some of the other, a little bit about the park. Talk to you a little bit about the park that's here. So that's a little bit about this is the office. So you can see that's the office. And now we're going to go outside. And this is Brian Piccolo Park. It's a 175-acre park in the heart of Broward County, which is Fort Lauderdale. It's the biggest park in the area. This park's got everything you can possibly imagine as far as fields. It's got baseball fields. It's got soccer fields. It has cricket fields. There's a professional cricket team that plays here. It's got one of the biggest skateboard parks in the area. They've got a back over there, which you can't see from here. It's called a velodrome, and that's where the bicyclists train. It's kind of like an angle. It's kind of like it's a racing, but racing for bicycle racing. It's called like a velodrome. And they have that here also, along with the skateboard park, along with walking trails and everything. It's the biggest park in the area. And you know, you can see this is just field 8 out of 175-acre park that they named after Brian Piccolo. So a little bit more about Brian Piccolo when he, and I'll tell you this, the person that gave me this idea to do this is Hugo, Signs of the Pastime. So I want to give him a heads up for, you know, his videos. I figured I'd do my videos inside all the time, and it's always beautiful here in Florida. I got to go outside. So thank you, Hugo, for giving me those great ideas. And I'm outside checking out some of the sceneries here. So this is a long, big park, so I'm not going to be able to walk too much of it, but I'm just going to go ahead and walk a little bit and talk a little bit about Brian Piccolo. So a little bit more about Brian. When he started with the Bears, there's a workout area there. When he started with the Bears, he was on the practice squad. So he had to make the team, and you know, the guy was an incredible hard worker, and he finally made the team. But you know, he unfortunately was competing against Gale Sayers. So for a running back, that's not a very good place to be in Chicago. But he ended up becoming the starting fullback. He was a small fullback, but he became the fullback for the team. And the year that Gale Sayers got hurt, and I think it was 1967, late in 1967, he got hurt. and he tore up his knee. He had knee ligament tears and things like that, and you know, they didn't know what he was going to be or how he was going to do. So Brian Piccolo came in and basically took over. And the last 5 games of the season, Brian Piccolo scored 5 touchdowns. He did great. They ended up winning, I think, 4 out of the last 5 games of that year. And then the next year he came back and he played. He was the starting fullback with Gale Sayers. And after that, here's the soccer field, guys. One of the soccer fields. So after that, he at the end of the season, he one of the games, Piccolo basically took himself out of the game, which he had never done before, and he couldn't breathe right, so they took him to the hospital, the Kettering Hospital, and unfortunately they found out that he had cancer at that point, and the cancer had spread, all the way into his lungs. They had to remove one of his lungs. They had to remove one of his chest muscle, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And basically about just 6 months after that, he passed away with Gale Sayers by his side, his best friend, the only Bears to room together, a black and white during those days in the late 60s. And another story about Brian Piccolo: when he was in college, one team that he played against, it was very racist. They had one black player on that team, and some of the fans for Wake Forest were, you know, kind of shouting some racial issues at that person from the opposing team. Brian Piccolo walked over all the way across the field, pulled that guy off the bench, hugged him, showed the fans, and told the fans to shut up, and they did. Brian Piccolo, a legend in South Florida, and an incredible human being that everyone should know about. So please, if you can, check out the story, check out his card. I'll give you a good look at his card, his rookie card that I picked up at the show. Brian Piccolo. It's misspelled Brian here because his real name was Brian. And that's the story. This is his only card, his rookie card. Chicago Bears running back Brian Piccolo. And that's the story of Brian Piccolo here at Brian Piccolo Park in South Florida. I'm going to show you the card, read you the back a little bit. And it says Brian Piccolo, running back for the Bears. After a slow start in his pro football career, Brian came into his own in 1967 as he wound up second on the Bears to Gale Sayers in rushing. 1965 was his roughest year. He sat it out because of a severe leg injury. And then it says here, Brian led the nation in scoring and rushing with Wake Forest in 1964. So he was the leading rusher, the leading running back in the nation, leading college running back in 1964. His rushing record, not very impressive, 3.7 yards average, a couple of touchdowns. This was back in 1969 card. And this was his last year. And Brian Piccolo passed away in 1970 at the age of 26 years old. So, guys, if you haven't seen the movie Brian's Song, please watch it. When I was at the show on Saturday, and I was with Mike Hitman, his wife was there, and she saw me buying that card, and she says, "Who is that?" And I told her the story, and hopefully she'll go back and and watch the movie, and I hope you guys do too. So thanks everyone for watching my video. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream here at Brian Piccolo Park on Sheridan Street in South Florida in near the Fort Lauderdale area. A few miles from here is St. Thomas Aquinas High School, where my son attended, and so did Brian Piccolo, along with many top athletes. So thank you guys. Have an awesome day. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Have an awesome day at Brian Piccolo Park.